Right, I see plenty of you have joined, so I guess we can get started. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to another session of the ITOM Visibility and Governance webinar series. This session is part of the Live on ServiceNow webinar series, and I guess you're very familiar with this session. If you're not, don't miss out on the recordings of the previous sessions that you can find in our community website. Today, we're going to talk about the service mapping leading practices, and we have a super special guest today. We have Bill Ifland, but we'll proceed with the introductions in a little while. So, just as a reminder, as I was mentioning there, this particular webinar is part of the Live on ServiceNow webinar series, which is an event series that is quite interactive and is meant to speed up the deployment adoption and really achieve value faster for your businesses. You can either scan this QR code here on this slide, or alternatively, you can use the link that has been just posted via chat. So just make sure that you will subscribe to this particular event series. Now, a few housekeeping items before we get going. So please make sure that everyone's line is muted, and make sure to please use the Q&A feature to really ask questions throughout this session, and we'll make sure they will answer all of them. Also, whenever you are asking those questions, feel free to introduce yourself, and really would like to know who you are. Please also participate in the polls. We're going to have a few polls today throughout the session, so it will be really great for us to understand your perspectives and your maturity levels. And again, this session, as I mentioned before, as for the previous session, this one specifically is recorded, and the recording will be shared not only on the ServiceNow community page, where you actually registered for this session specifically, but also on YouTube. And on the actual very same page, you will also find out the slides that we're going to present today. For after this session, please make sure that you fill out the short survey you'll be prompted at. This is really important feedback for us. So you've done a great job so far. Please just keep meeting our expectations. That's great. So again, for those of you that don't know me yet, my name is Gian Mario De Luigi. I'm part of the outbound product management team here for ITOM. And together with me today, we're going to have the superstar, as many of you asked for. It is going to be William Ifland, also known as Bill. So Bill, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Bill Ifland, and a little bit about myself. I have been a practitioner of ServiceNow since 2007, and I joined the organization after being a practitioner for 13 years. So in a little bit around 2018, I became a ITOM Ranger. And with that, my expertise areas are around CMDB, CSDM, ITOM visibility, and more specifically, service mapping. And again, just a shout out to my manager, Danilo Makula, and the other Rangers. Just want to thank them for their support and also their encouragement. I get a lot of, challenge, and iron sharpens iron. So again, thank you for your attendance today, and I hope this is a session that meets your expectations.
Absolutely. I'm sure it will, Bill. This is exciting stuff to have you on this specific session, as very, very few people out there can have your level of expertise on these topics, especially when it comes to ITOM visibility and service mapping. So before we proceed into the content, we just wanted to make sure that you understand that throughout this presentation, we could be potentially making some forward-looking statements. So don't necessarily base your purchasing decision on these forward-looking statements that you could find throughout this presentation. Most of the content, either way, is about current solutions, but we just wanted to make sure that you're aware there could be something that is, again, a forward-looking statement. So today's topic, as I said, is service mapping, and it's very important to really understand why are we doing this session. And this is exactly the intent of these very few slides at the beginning of this presentation. So let's get started. I'm pretty sure that if this is not the first time you attend our webinar series, you're by now familiar with this slide. And the key message that this slide wants to convey is, first of all, that visibility is really paramount for your business technology excellence. And I want to always use the analogy that is always mentioned in the ITOM workshops that we do together with all of you, which is you can only manage what you know. So visibility helps you to have a real understanding of what you have in your infrastructure, what applications you have across, of course, multiple either cloud or on-prem environments, and also makes you understand what are the relationships between those CIs. So really, the CMDB, as you may be familiar with, is the real data foundation of your organization, and is ServiceNow's data foundation, of course, but especially the most successful CMDBs are the ones that are not only populated with all the information about the infrastructure elements, if we will, or about the applications, but is the really service-aware CMDBs that are the most successful ones. And that's exactly why today we're going to talk about service-aware CMDBs. What does this imply? And we're going to see now in more details with the following slides. So the CMDB can have different levels of, we can say, awareness or maturity. So ITOM discovery allows you to have the technology awareness. So to really be aware of what your infrastructure resources are across different environments. We're talking about on-prem, we're talking about private, managed, and public clouds, really. So what is your technology stack? And then on top of that, we have service mapping, which is going to be exactly what we're going to talk about today. Then let you understand what are the relationships between the very same application services and those CIs that we have discovered. And so that technology layer that is underneath. So we can take data-driven decisions on top of those CIs, because we know exactly what impact do they generate on the application services on top of them. And then the CSDM, which my understanding is most of you will be familiar with, gives you even a bigger perspective on the actual business context of those application services. So tying that up to the very same business application. So this is a very important slide that lets you understand the reasons why we're talking about service mapping in CSDM today. And now, talking about CSDM, this is the very latest common services data model. This is the 4.0 version of it. And in particular, I'm not going to focus on all these elements that are very important to the CSDM, but today specifically, I want to highlight the importance of the application service that is at the very center of the CSDM, because they have actually many implications, but specifically, they are the very ones that allow us to have a service-aware CMDB. And together with them, there are the configuration items, so our CIs that we populate into the CMDB, and the dynamic CI groups that have relevance from an application service point of view. So these are going to be three of the main pillars that we're going to talk about today, and they give the main importance of why we're doing service mapping. Now, there are different approaches to service mapping, clearly, but we're still in the section where we want to understand why we want to do service mapping. And here, there is a very clear answer. In general, when we want to populate the application services into our CMDB, this is done because we want to make sure to have an answer if a given infrastructure CI that we have previously discovered is a member of an application service. And if not, well, we'll still be able to make a well-informed, data-driven decision. So not having the knowledge of the application services, and so the relationship between infrastructure CI and any application services leads oftentimes to longer mean time to resolutions, uncertainty in terms of ownership and the impacts on the very same customers. And then we can have missed approvals because of the missing information in that side. Also, unplanned outages are typically part of not having a service-aware CMDB. And at the same time, it's very hard to allocate resources because they are not really aligned with the issue they were trying to address. Now, instead, if we have a service-aware CMDB, if we reach that level of awareness, typically we have shorter mean time to resolution. We have exactly the determination of which customers are impacted by a specific issue. We can understand the resource that needs to be allocated to that very same issue. We can make informed and managed plan assessments of the specific plant outages. And then we can also have the proper change of risk assessments and approvals. These are a few of the very important aspects that we need to consider whenever we are approaching a service-aware CMDB. But I think this is enough for the introduction of the why. So now we want to make sure that you provide your inputs. As I said, we need to make sure that you are participating enough in this session, and we have the first poll already that I'm going to launch right now. So I want to really understand which of the following statements is the most accurate for your organization in particular. So are you currently discovering any resources? And if you're doing so, are you doing that through ITOM visibility and specifically ITOM discovery? Are you otherwise leveraging service graph connectors to populate your CMDB? Or are you discovering resources and mapping your application services? So actually gaining that service awareness of your CMDB. Well, please select the most accurate of these statements. I see already plenty of answers here in this poll. So this is great. This is great participation. So thanks everyone for answering here. I'm going to give other few seconds so everyone has the chance to decide which one is the most accurate statement for your case. Even if I see a very important common trend, I see someone is trying to raise their hands. Please make sure that you insert your answers in the Q&A box so we can make sure to actually address them for everyone. So please don't raise your hands there. Right, so I guess we can end the poll and I will share the results with you. So it looks like most of you, the actual 58% of you is discovering the resources via ITOM discovery, which is great, followed by 21% that is actually having that further layer of service awareness into their CMDB. And then we have almost the same percentage of people that are either primarily leveraging service graph connectors to populate the CMDB or discovering, not currently discovering the resources. So thanks very much for sharing these insights. Right, so this was enough for the why. Now I will leave it to you, Bill, for the how section. And I think you're muted.
There we go. Yes, getting the control panel in a nice place. So yes, now we're going to jump into the how, and we're going to be looking at the different methods or practices of populating a service map. If we go with the concept earlier of a service-aware CMDB, right, we're going to be trying to answer that Venn diagram, that question, which CIs belong to which service? So remember earlier we talked about the CMDB is the center of our knowledge exchange and handoffs between our processes, making it data-driven. But I also want to make the claim that it's delivered through application services, where we start relating that infrastructure, giving it context. So to answer a question, a service map is different than a dependency view. A dependency view just shows all of the connections being made, regardless of the flow of traffic, but based on what CI is in the center of that diagram and what it's connected to. Whereas an application service has context, usually has an entry point, but also we have in our toolbox 3 other techniques to populate our service maps so that we're not just constrained to a top-down experience, a process-to-process experience. So specifically, again, when we look at the Common Services Data Model, we see that the application services center, but also the dynamic CI group is something that allows us to capture technical services. And it may be something that you could use also in the meantime or as a bridge to your service mapping journey, so that you can capture your CIs for your application, the business service that you're delivering, and being able to articulate what CIs belong to that service. Of course, there's manual, which essentially is drawing the map. And then there's tag-based, which comes from your resource tagging, where you have name-value pairs. You have a key name and a value that gets used in a query to build a collection for that tag-based map. And then lastly is the top-down experience, where you're providing some sort of TCP information, either HTTP entry point or a database entry point, some form of middleware. Typically, it is a web entry point. And of course, the machine learning aspects are contained within the top-down experience. At the bottom of the deck, I'll have a breakdown, or in the appendix, of the considerations for these, a deeper consideration, and also the technical aspects, where they live in the CMDB and what's their service type. Okay, so take it away again, John.
Right, so the second poll here is really important for us to really understand which processes are you currently using, or do you plan to use your application services for, with which processes. So I'm gonna launch the poll now, so please enter your choices. In this case, we have a multiple choice option. So I saw that for the previous poll, a few of you wanted to actually choose different options. The aim of that poll was to really understand the closest scenario for each of you, but I understand that there's no black and white, and it could be very often gray there. So thanks for sharing your insights in the chat. Now I see many of you are entering their answers, so we really appreciate it. And I'm going to give another few seconds so you can think about it more. Right. So in 5 seconds, I think we can close the poll. And again, great participation from all of you. We really appreciate it. I see a whopping 66% of participants has answered already. So that is great. Perfect. So I see most of you has answered here. So I'm going to end the poll and share the results. Right. So they were, the answers were in perfect order here. As a matter of fact, 89% of views is using the application services for IT change management processes. Then we have 78% of you that is using incident management and MIM for processes, and then we have 50% of users that is using application services for AOps and event management purposes, and the remaining 42% for security incident and vulnerability response. So thanks a lot. And please, Bill, over to you.
Sure thing. Yeah. So yes, all of these and many more. I know that there may have been a missing item on the poll, but that's all right. I did get the sense that some teams are also using application portfolio management, ties into our strategic portfolio management, where we can look at things like total cost of ownership, not only from a ops perspective, but from a plan, build, run. So as we venture into the different approaches, right, these are all the tools in your toolbox, and you don't have to use one over the other, right? There could be a lot of business drivers that could limit you today, and maybe tomorrow you could venture into a more detailed, more surgical mapping with top down. And so a dynamic CI group, right, is very easy to pull together. It's a query of the CMDB, and you can use one or more methods of querying the CMDB to build the list. It doesn't have topology. It's a large list, or it could be a small list. And when used with ITOM Health, right, we can quickly identify from a which element or item in it is unhealthy or critical in severity. It can be treated or substituted much like an application service, because it has the ability to update the service CI association table. That's the Venn diagram table or the intersection table of my service and my CIs that belong to that service. So I consider that a peer to application services, and it could be something that can be quickly put together and tends to be utilized around technology platforms, or I guess you would say users or providers of technical services in the data center. So show me the list of production Tomcat servers. Show me the list of production IIS servers, something of that nature, so that you can have a quick lookup. Manual, of course, is just like painting on a map. You select your manual CI at the top, and then you go to the UI, and you can draw by adding CIs your connections. Typically, these CIs tend to be more server oriented and not so much the process ones that are found by discovery, from the URL or from the entry point. But this also gives you a quick visualization, gives you a quick membership, and perhaps is suitable for those things that don't have a high volume of change. For example, you may have some of your mainframe or AS400 or some other systems that you do not have IP-based discovery, but they are loaded in your CMDB, and you can quickly build a map. Now, for tag-based, we're talking about cloud native, either private or public, and that they can be captured through the tagging of your resources when they're provisioned. Most of the time, though, I've seen organizations have missed that opportunity to tag their assets, but through our tag governance feature, that you can manage with policies which devices are missing their tags, and then you can remediate those from the cloud providers. At this time, VMware remediation isn't possible. But again, we're using categories of either based on application ID, a location, a consumer, a cost center, something that basically identifies that resource, either EC2 server, S3, Lambda, or Kubernetes objects in the cloud, anything that actually represents a stack or a container in the cloud. And lastly, the top-down discovery of service mapping is what most folks, consider when they hear about service mapping. I start with an entry point, an IP, and a port, and we do host detection to determine what is that running process. And then from there, we either use patterns to read a config file, or we use the machine learning through the traffic-based collected data to build that process-to-process connectivity. They can be used, I guess, when I say they, the connection techniques, right, through the machine learning suggestions, or the pattern base can be used on the same map. As well as Service Mapping Plus actually takes it one step further and looks for large process-to-process chains to see if they can be represented as a application service candidate. Up until now, our candidate method was using data that was collected from our load balancers. And so some of those zips can be top level, some of them can be intermediate level resource or IPs. Here with the machine learning, we stretch that out to find the most resources connected and then present that as a candidate. If you already had a service map built, the connection suggestion feature takes that same concept of all of the, if you will, downstream nodes that are on a map, if they have any more connections to further progress the topology. Just a couple of notes, the tag-based manual dynamic CI group doesn't have a concept of clustering when you're looking at ITOM, AI ops, or health, whereas the top-down discovery with connection suggestions or or the pattern connections, the concept of clustering is capable there. And much like any, kind of want to answer one of the questions, the idea here is that shared resources can be a member of more than one of these types. And you can use one of these types or two of these types to map the same application, or as you progress through your life cycle of your service mapping journey. It may be the quick visualization you need now so that you can leverage your event management space or change management, and then as your organization matures, and you can leverage the process-to-process connections. Hopefully, this kind of convinces and shatters the notion, right? I don't have to do just discovered top-down. I have other capabilities in my toolbox to get my value, right? It's the outcome. The service map itself is not the final result. It's the capability of to share the information to IT change management, incident management, portfolio management, strategic portfolio management, et cetera. So, and also need some strategies. How do I want to approach those techniques? Where I look at, the prioritization as being something separate from the method I choose, right? It just tells me what I do first, looking at mission critical, then key operations, and then the remaining applications in my enterprise. And notice that, ideally we want to do that top down, right? That might be a level of maturity that's not achievable today, so we can always use a different technique, but there may be a time and place and resources and funding to get you there that you can do the top-down discovery. So what I'm showing here basically is that through this decision tree, you can get where you would, I guess you would want to be ideally. So if like back to the ITOM health, I need clusters, or I need process-to-process topology. That's always going to drive me to the discovered or top-down with the two connection practices. If I just need a simple list of CIs to manage my change management, or if something is up-down, then a dynamic CI group may be the best outcome or the right size, fit for duty, fit for utility. Okay. Any questions that haven't been fully answered, John and Kim?
Yeah, we do have a few that we are trying to answer in the back end. Not sure if you can open the chat yourself. Maybe just pick one really.
Okay. So the business application is linked directly to the SDLC components and app service guessing calculated app service. So the concept of a calculated app service does come into play, and actually you see it here on this matrix. If we dig deeper into the CSDM 4.0, the SDLC domain is optional. Version 3.0 is still very much applicable. And depending on the white paper you have, there is a relationship that'll go directly from the business application to the service application service. There is still that as a part of the entity diagram and the entity diagram relationship. So we're not deprecating or losing that connectivity, but it is still there between the business app and application service. The business app represents your portfolio. It doesn't have any suffixes like prod or dev. It doesn't have any version numbers on it. It doesn't have any geographic designations as far as its naming convention. It represents the business capabilities of a particular product in your portfolio through the other elements of the design domain. And so depending on how far your discovery reach is or what you're using for your discovery sources can determine how much service mapping automation is possible. The first two, dynamic CI queries, dynamic CI groups with the CMDB queries and manual, they do have a lot of human intervention, but you can execute them in a way that they keep up to date. Tag-based has less, and of course, discovered top-down is the most automatic way. And perhaps this is probably where we were talking about our safe harbor. In the near future, ACCV will be able to do patterns in the potential future, so that we would be able to do a form of horizontal top-down discovery with ACCV. There is a community article out there that allows you or shares with you how to add logic to make it tag-based to feed the CMDB key value table. Our service graph connectors, some of them actually do create calculated services. Consider those much like manual services where the relationships are predetermined either by the CI relationship data or predetermined by the product that's being ingested. AppDynamics and Dynatrace have very specific perspectives when it comes to mapping their services, but we take them and then bring them in and land them in the appropriate infrastructure tables and then build a calculated service from that in that fashion, so that it cannot be changed manually, but only through the service graph connectors. Okay, let's see. So next poll.
Right. So the final poll for today, and then we're going to go on our demo, is we really want to know, okay, for those of you that are actually mapping their services, so how many application services have you created and populated so far? We have different ranges here, so you can just tell us if you're literally getting started with that, or if you are somewhat in the middle of it, or if you became an expert, so you're creating and populating application services at scale. I see many of you are already putting their answers here. It's another single choice poll. And I see many answers keep coming here. So another 10 seconds and we can go ahead. Right. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So the majority of views is actually getting started with creating and populating application services with the 48% of views doing that. And then we have 24% of views that is actually creating and populating application services at scale. And then 18% that it's somewhat still getting started, and 10% that is somewhat at a medium advanced level. So thanks again for the great participation today. This is absolutely exciting, and we see many questions in the Q&A section coming in for you. So, Bill, not sure if you want to cover one more question, or maybe since we only have about 20 minutes, you want to go and demo?
Yes. Yes. So really quickly, ACCV, Agent Client Collector Visibility, that is our agent-based solution, whereas most of our discovery initially was handled through agentless, right, through mid servers and credentials. So there are going to be some devices that won't have that kind of freedom, or security policies may restrict agentless discovery, right? Sharing passwords. So that is our agent-based solution for those kind of scenarios. And also a quick question, do I need to implement CSDM before service mapping? That CSDM is a part of a framework that should establish where you land your CIs. I would continue to, I guess you would say, advocate doing the crawl, walk, run. I know not all organizations can do something like that in a greenfield situation. So you're going to have various levels of maturity, but following the white paper and some of those questions, perhaps that might be useful in another webinar. So, but I'm going to go ahead and start looking at the service mapping approaches. And even with the calculated services, all of these techniques populate a service map, which means the service CI association table gets populated, therefore giving that exposure to impacted services, either be it change or be it incident, or perhaps even through my vulnerability and security or portfolio. So today's demo, I'm going to focus on pretty much a two-tier application that is a web application layer talking to a database layer, which is going to be front-ended by a software load balancer. And I know that being time is a little tight, I'm going to move a little fast with our demo, but hopefully get through the key concepts here. So let's go ahead and go log in. But what I wanted to share so I've got 5 servers in my application stack for production and 3 servers in my application for my development. So let me go back one. Here we go. So these are essentially the servers that are running the processes for my collaboration and documentation application. So I'm using the service operations workspace to help demonstrate or show some of the outcome capabilities here, where we have our CSDM relationships, and then we have our built-in relationships of our CIs that built this application are standing up. So this is just a simple list that can be used for impact analysis and for ITOM AI ops. So here's our 3 services, or excuse me, servers for my application. Let's look at the production one, and this is one that I'm going to do more of a hands-on demo with. Right now, I know that I have 5 servers, but I only have 3 of them, or 2 of them, excuse me, loaded here. We need to go find the other 3. And the technique for building a dynamic CI group, you first start with a CMDB group. And what's exciting or special about a CMDB group is that it gives you a way to gives you a way to use multiple queries to produce your list. Here we go. So I'm going to just jump into the production one. So yes, it's one layer away from the dynamic CI group definition, but we start with the CMDB group to elaborate on our different ways to query the CMDB. I can identify it explicitly. I can do it through a list view, and I can do it through a CMDB query, builder query. And this is a part of the takeaway, I guess. I would hope that perhaps everyone would have a learning opportunity here. So you saw, that I can, if I do the show all CIs here, it should match with what I saw on the detail tab of the service operations workspace. I have my two servers. The first one was identified based on it explicitly being labeled in a slush bucket, so to speak. The second one here was done through the list view or enhanced query, enhanced query, encoded query on the Linux table, built in a way that would always keep it up to date. So we're looking at operational status as operational, used for production as it's is another element of its filter. So let me go ahead and show that while we're here. So this is kind of one of those pro tips. When you're building these, you leverage something where you know that you're using operational status, right? It depends on the discovery capabilities and your CMDB lifecycle management. And this is a way to keep it up to date over time, over change. So jumping back to the other element of this, where I'm using this query to identify it, this is something that you may be able to leverage for products that are in your enterprise, but you don't have a discovery pattern quite yet for it, or you haven't taken the application fingerprinting and made your own pattern. So what we're going to do is take the running process data, which is provided by horizontal discovery, and we're going to add it to the map. And because the computer column is on it, it has a natural inner join here. And because I may have a useful naming convention, I can employ that as well, either here in the query builder or in the encoded query. So we're similar to what we had before. Show me all servers that match this, but now I want to constrain it such that I want to only bring in the servers that are running Apache. So, and I know that the name of that process from from horizontal discovery comes in as HTTPD. And again, another approach, I only want the ones that are recently found during discovery, not those that have missing. So if I run this, I should now find 3 servers. And the same technique can be done for anything you know about the running process, but you haven't quite built out the application fingerprint pattern for it. So this could be very effective when you need ad hoc services being shown in dynamic CI groups, or onboarding a new technology. So now that I go back to my definition here of the CMDB CI group, this is now going to bring in those 3 additional servers. So if I actually now show all CIs, I'll have all 5. And there we go. That same technique that I showed with the CMDB query builder can be also done using the CI relationship table. to other CIs that have already been discovered, say Tomcat, WebSphere, WebLogic, IIS, and so on. All right, doing a little bit of housekeeping. So now, hopefully, my service now will be up to date with 5 CIs. And this is stored in the details, like the list CIs that are on the service mapping view of this form. You can list CIs and get the same content. So that's quickly the using it with the query-based approach. Manual is essentially the same thing. Like it says, you start, you specify a service. I may not go through the whole thing here, given the time constraint. But also need to share with you that the manual maps are also stored in the same table as the top-down. They just happen to have a different. Service type, and this allows for parity between a manual map and a discovered map. So, looking for service type. Here we go. So you can quickly see. And then, of course, I've got extended classes also showing up in this group. But here you can see the manual map and the way it was built. I fixed it, or hard-coded, if you will, my entry point by using the manually created feature. And this is table specific, so it does not cascade through. So when I picked it for this, I actually picked the Linux server class and specified it. And then once I was on the map, I was able to use the UI, right-click, and add CI. So right-click, add CI, gives you essentially the same dialogue, and you connect the dots like you would normally see in a Visio diagram or an architecture diagram.
Just a quick question in the chat, Bill. So we want to make sure that everyone is aware of this. So you're asking if the MediaWiki service was manually created application service.
So yes, the CI class, application services, and that's a good point. With the CSDM, you can specify or identify all your application services, and then at the appropriate time populate them. So these CIs, application service CIs, are, I guess I would call them gray matter CIs. You have to give them a name, you have to give them criticality status, and you have to choose the method of population. And that can be done via the left nav, picking the right class type. You see here I've got top-down, tag-based, and so on. Or you can actually use the CSDM manage technical services application service wizard here. You can specify the name and put in the gray matter attributes like owner, managed by, support group, key other values, and then at future date come back and put in the population method, and you may be able to populate it right there directly from the wizard, or it takes you to an advanced screen like this, and you would come and continue to populate. And to answer a question that I saw earlier, can I get the list of CIs that are in a map? And that is, the short answer is yes, using the list CI feature. You saw that here. And that would allow us to export that data. It's coming from Service CI Association. So again, in light of time, I wanted to go ahead and begin the tag-based one, because most of us are familiar with the top-down, and there may be opportunity for another webinar on top-down pattern best practices. I was going to cover that, but I think given the time, we're a little bit short. But I want to encourage everyone to keep their discovery patterns up to date and from the store, discovery and service mapping patterns, as well as visibility content. Those are two of the store plugins that you would need to keep up to date as you continue your service mapping, your ITOM visibility journey. So back to the workspace. So here I've created a service map based on the application, but it has everything in it. What I mean by everything, it has all of my 8 servers, and I really need to make a distinction between the two. And to be able to do that in the tag space, you leverage multiple tag categories. So tag CI categories here, I've already created 2, but I want to show you quickly how some analysis of your tag data can come and support the which keys you use. Typically, you'll have something that shows application ownership or application ID, application name. You might have something for environment. So in this case, I have 2 ways of saying environment, and that's what categories allow you to do, just like we did have here for 2 ways of saying app. You may have multiple cloud teams provisioning, and they rolled their own keys, and the category allows you to standardize, normalize those key values. So here I'm going to make something called a key environment key, and I'm going to use both environment and env as my inputs here. Okay. Now that I've done that, let's go back here. Right now I have applications that are out there like MediaWiki, but I have not made the distinction of development or prod. I may also want to combine it with location. Typically, I like to do at least 2 keys, sometimes 3 if you have multiple data centers, to be able to identify those assets. So go back here and tag-based families. So once you've defined your categories, now we can create quickly an outcome of service maps. Once you select the order of your categories, it is static. I guess you would say it's immutable for those CIs. And so I'm going to do application key first, and then I'm going to do environment key second. So all of the CIs that match both of these unique values will become our candidates. So every possible combination will be in our list today. So you see MediaWiki production, MediaWiki development. And it uses the value of the tag as its default name, but you can come back and actually rename it. Now that I've created them from the candidates, they have to be enabled or populated manually first, and then nightly there is a recalculation job that keeps these up to date. And you saw that here's the category values, what was chose first, what was second. And this is what I mean by immutable. We don't want it to be, it's changed. If you need to reorder the keys, if you have 2 or more, then I would recommend you create a new family from that. Another question that comes up often is, can I take my tags tag-based services and convert it to another type? And the short answer is no, that is not possible. These are multiple, you can have two service maps representing the same entity. They're just different ways of representing the data. So going here really quickly, I know we're going to be short on time, but I wanted to finish this out really quick with the tag-based key service group. Now I have my 5 servers. And the last piece that I want to share with this is the traversal rule. This will wrap up the presentation then. The traversal rules combines both your tagged information and perhaps some horizontal discovery information that can take the runs on data or hosted on data and apply it so that it can bring topologies, because depending on the type of CI that's tagged, and in most cases it's going to be the virtual machine instance, that's what these CIs are. So let's get the actual OS server that it represents on the map. Just navigating over to the other UI and going to recalculate. Notice right now that all the CIs that are here are the endpoints that created the map and my original VM instances. We'll go ahead and recalculate it. It's going to take the additional discovered information, IP discovery, and bring it into the map. So now my list CI list is going to be much larger because it's going to capture the runs on the Apache web servers and the MySQL and the as well as the HA proxy.
A quick question on this, actually, Bill. How often do we recommend to run discovery in order to have their companies can have service maps continuously updated without compromising performances?
I like to, with the leading practice of doing it nightly. I know that you may need to, daisy chain your schedules, right? So that you do one area or data center or VLAN at a time, and doing it so that it kicks them off when the previous one finishes so that you get the best outcome. But ideally every evening. And I know that through some of these vMotion or events, even in the cloud, there are event-driven opportunities to either rediscover an asset or update the CMDB based on an event. Not an up-down event, but actually, a change in configuration kind of event.
Right. I think we are about to wrap up.
Yep.
Anything else from your side, Bill?
Yep, the takeaway here is the bottom row is all the items that were tagged, and then using traversal rules was giving me the ability to map out more detail in this map.
Cool.
So that should do it for today. And I'll go ahead, John, and go ahead and close us out.
That is great. So hope you can see my screen again. So really, we had many interactions with all of you. So thanks for your great participation today. And make sure, as we said before, to really subscribe to your series, as our next topic is going to be leveraging the agent client collector that we mentioned before for some use cases. That's going to be on November 14th. So make sure to enroll into that session. And we'll make sure to share the recordings together with the slides of today and the appendix, actually, so you can have even more value out of that deck. So again, thanks everyone for the amazing participation, and it's always great to have you back to the series. And thanks again, Bill, for your absolutely amazing leadership and expertise that you brought to this event. It was really a privilege to have you on this. And thanks, Kim, as well for helping answer most of these questions. This is a great effort. So thanks, everyone. And we look forward to see you all very soon. Please make sure to fill out the survey that you'll be prompted at right now, and to recommend us whatever you feel like should be covered in the next episode. So again, see you all soon and take care.